All right, Habibis, welcome.
My bad.
Another episode of The Balance. What's good, Jason?
Yeah, what's going on? What's
uh,
happening?
uh,
See
ha-
all this.
happy Monday, happy Cyber Monday to all my kings and queens out there. We getting them deals. Jason, how's your Thanksgiving?
It was good. It was good. I'm gonna simultaneously talk to you and listen to your.
Oh, good. You finally got it.
Yeah, I like it.
Oh, good. Yeah, I was making it last night.
Yeah.
I actually made it on the stream last night. And what's up, Das? And then I played Call of Duty Zombies with one of the Habibis who just chimed in. Das Blue. Obviously, don't forget to follow and on Twitch and also on YouTube. And follow Dr. Jason Nichols at Dr. Jason Nichols on Twitter. I'm obviously you probably came here from Twitter. I'm at Siraj Hashmi. Anyways, this past week seemed just weird. Everything about it was weird. As soon as Thanksgiving wrapped up, it felt like Sunday on Friday. And then Saturday it felt like Saturday. And then Sunday felt like Sunday again. It's like we went through two weekends. It was just weird. I mean, we both had pretty small Thanksgivings. We both live with like a parent. Uh and so we were able to at least have um a sort of semblance of normalcy by being with family on Thanksgiving. But there are a lot of people who weren't able to do that, and it sucks because there were a lot of people who were just very depressed, and suicide rates go up during the holiday season naturally, just because of feelings of loneliness. And I can't even imagine what it's going to be like this coming holiday season, where more and more people are going to find themselves to be alone, and it sucks.
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely. I have a lot of empathy for those people, but I just want to say I also have a lot of empathy for the people who have lost somebody.
Oh, absolutely.
You
Oh
know,
yeah, and it's the first holiday without them.
yeah, yeah, no, definitely, and with the whole COVID thing, like there have been a lot of people who have lost somebody who they weren't expecting to lose this quickly, and if you believe the forecasts, the people who broke those rules and went outside of their immediate circle,
Hmm.
they run the risk of losing more people. And so I think a lot of these COVID rules they freaking suck.
They do.
Although I will say this, I'm getting accustomed to not going to work. So like I kind of don't want to go back to work. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to go into the office. I'm like, I'm good right here.
Yeah.
Um,
I,
at the same time, it's if it's for the public good for us to stay at home and to make sure that hopefully we can have 2 or 3 or 4 more holidays with some of our loved ones, some of our elders. I think it's worth the sacrifice.
yeah.
I
I,
haven't seen my grandmother in a year, and she's 91. She'll be 92 in February, and I'm willing to risk it so that I can, hopefully after next year have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 um, more, holidays with
holidays
her.
with them. Yeah, no. I mean, look, everyone's going through it. We were gonna have my parents over at my in-laws, and they ended up bailing because of COVID, and um, obviously our Thanksgiving could have been much bigger, but it wasn't. And look, these are small sacrifices. I was actually never expecting to have Thanksgiving with my parents. I never actually even expected them to be moving nearby. I mean, they only live like 10, 15 minutes away from me now, as opposed to 7 hours, so it's always nice getting a chance to see them. Um, but I mean, there are just so many weird stories that are coming out because of COVID. And since, it's Monday morning, or Monday afternoon. Shit, I keep thinking it's morning. Shows you how off my sleep schedule has been. By the way, my sleep schedule has been horrendous since the election. It's just not. I can't fall asleep before 4 a.m. It's really bad. I try to finally offset it by waking up early this time around, so I am feeling especially lethargic right now. But I will say this, and I'm trying to find the exact tweet because it's just so crazy that in football related news, you're having a surge in COVID cases among NFL teams. One in particular, obviously,
Yeah.
you had the Baltimore Ravens. They were going to play the Pittsburgh Steelers on Thursday night, on Thanksgiving night. They ended up pushing that game back. Lamar Jackson ended up testing positive for COVID. And I think James Conner, the running back for the Steelers, he also tested positive. Um, and then you end up having
And he's a cancer.
what's that?
Well, hold up, Siraj. He's a cancer survivor, right? Like
James Conner?
James Conner,
Is he? I need to
isn't
find.
he a cancer survivor?
Let's look this up. Let's.
Like he's a,
I'm glad I have the power of Google at the tip of my fingers to find out if James Conner actually
if
is.
I'm not mistaken, I think it's James Conner who's the cancer survivor.
Let's find out. Yeah, you're right. James Conner is a cancer survivor. He's high risk too.
Yeah, like
That's crazy.
yeah, I mean that's super high risk.
He had not. He had
That's
high.
what did in
He didn't have just any. He didn't have any like normal cancer. I mean, like he had like not a rare form of cancer. He had a somewhat common form of cancer, but still pretty dangerous. Hodgkin's lymphoma. I mean, that's nothing to mess around with. Um,
yeah,
I had a buddy of mine from college who got Hodgkin's lymphoma. Thankfully, he's doing much better now. But I mean, he got it with like 25, and it's crazy how many young people get it. But
yeah.
uh,
Young men in particular.
Oh, none the wiser. Thanks for subbing, Habibi. Appreciate it. What was I gonna say? Oh, and then you had the Denver Broncos. One of the biggest like bungles of the entire weekend. All three quarterbacks ended up being exposed to COVID. They didn't have a positive test yet, but they were exposed, and therefore they couldn't play on Sunday. So they ended up getting one of the practice squad wide receivers who played quarterback for like 6 or 8 games throughout his entire college career at Wake Forest. He thankfully completed a pass. He went 1 for 9, 13 yards passing, and then he actually completed more passes to the New Orleans Saints than he did to the Denver Broncos. He threw 2 interceptions, if you can believe it.
Well, I mean, let's thank that kid though. That guy had
Hey, he stepped
literally
up.
zero practice.
He stepped up. He stepped up, and he. You know, it's interesting.
I'm
And then
surprised.
and they scored 3 points. But you know what's even funnier about that is that they scored the same amount of points against the Saints in the last month as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers under Tom Brady. They only scored 3 points
Right?
between both games. So, shout out to Kendall Hinton for stepping up and trying to get his
Zero
team.
snaps in practice.
Yeah, he took
He
the
had
snaps.
zero.
Zero
He
snaps.
came
Zero
into
snaps in the NFL. Very first time.
yeah, like, but not even practice. He didn't even get to practice at quarterback. So he's literally coming in completely cold and playing NFL quarterback. While that's my dream, it's like a nightmare of a football player.
Yeah,
Like,
it's too good. But yeah, that the thing is, and then Adam Schefter, he comes out here with a bizarre tweet saying that despite the fact that, and I think I'll be able to find it because I don't know if people I was dunking on him, but I was definitely like doing something where it was kind of showing how horribly run the NFL is, and that is with respect to canceling the any of the NFL games during the times of COVID. He was saying that like despite all the positive tests that they've had, they've never once the NFL has never once canceled a game. Although I feel like they really should have, because this is not a controlled environment, much like the NBA bubble was, or even the NHL was. It's actually kind of crazy. Where is it? Here we go. He says, worth a reminder, the NFL is now on Sunday of Week 12 and has yet to cancel a single game this season. And then I like people were dunking on me for people were trying to dunk on me. I don't know if they actually worked, but given the fact that the NFL is so horribly run, uh, the fact that they covered up the entire concussion and CTE, the chronic traumatic encephalopathy scandal, the NFL has never canceled a game for that, and it just kind of shows you that it's always been about money over uh, player health and safety. If it were about player health and safety, they would have canceled the entire season. They did allow people to opt out of the season during, like right before the season began, and a lot of players did opt out. And then it's also kind of funny because there's a tweet from Clyde McGrady, who's over at Roll Call, puts out a nice little side by side. It says ESPN announcers, we are not passing judgment on players who opted out of the season over coronavirus concerns. Now here's a clip of a player explaining why he decided to play instead of betraying his team like a coward. I mean, Jason, it's so bizarre. Like if you're putting the health and safety of your family ahead of the rest of your team, that is not that is not cowardice. That is even more selfless than not playing football.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree. The NFL, like, uh, they're talking. Well, so in other news, I was hearing that they're going to do an island for college basketball. Is that true?
Didn't they already start the season? I haven't actually heard that.
Yeah, well, for March Madness,
Oh, March
they're
Madness.
going to do an island. Yeah, I mean, they
Interesting.
can't do an island for the whole, for all of college basketball,
Well,
but
that
for
that
March Madness,
honestly, that sounds pretty dope. I actually, what's really funny is I was trying to my father-in-law. We were chatting yesterday, um, and we had I think it was the Colts Titans game on, and he's a big Trump supporter, so it's actually kind of funny. I actually got him to watch football with me, considering all of the protests that were going on that made him like want to turn off football altogether. Um, but he was watching it with me, and he's like, "Hey, we should go to a game." I'm like, um, I don't know if they're actually letting anyone in, because at the Colts game there were fans at the game. There weren't many, but there were fans there. And he's like, we should try to see if they're selling tickets over in at FedEx Field. I'm like checking Ticketmaster. They're like, of course they're not selling any games, but they did have an advertisement for like the Washington football team against the Pittsburgh Steelers on December 6th. And you go to it, and it's of course no tickets being sold. So why would you even put out the advertisement? It's just weird. Or the
and well, I
option.
guess they want people to watch on TV.
Yeah,
That it's really the TV.
yeah. I mean,
It's
I've
really
heard.
the TV.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, I cut you off.
No, I was just gonna say it's really the TV revenue that they actually make money from. It's not ticket sales. You know what I
Mm,
mean? Like TV revenue and merch and stuff like that that teams actually generate a lot of their money and their revenue from. So I see them. I understand why they advertise, but
yeah,
that's why they're not tripping over the fans not being there, is because it's really the ad money that
yeah,
really gets them paid.
yeah.
You know,
So, a couple of I mean, what's really happening in the world right now? I mean, we still got the all the legal cases going forward, or at least the efforts going forward. I think right now, as we're recording, Rudy Giuliani is currently in Arizona, in Phoenix, in front of a hearing trying to get the case heard. I believe the Trump campaign right now is like what, 1 for 40, 1 for 39 or something right now, or 1 and 39. So that would make them 1 for 40. Um, so that's, I mean, that's obviously a really bad case rate. In fact, what's interesting, so they got the case since we recorded. You had Rudy Giuliani and Jenna Ellis go in front of a hearing in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, and they had an audience there, so there were people who were oohing and eyeing and applauding, and they were trying to basically make an argument that the election was rigged against Donald Trump in favor of Joe Biden, but for some reason the allegations of fraud never even made it into the case, and I think even what's his name, if did you watch Trump's interview on Maria Bartiromo's Morning Futures yesterday? Did
No.
I was like,
No, I
well,
did not.
Jason, that sounds like it right up your alley. So I watched it and I went back and because I'm I'm a sucker for laying in bed and watching stuff, so I fell asleep in the middle of it. So I went back and rewound it and watched it again. Um, and then Ken Starr hopped on the uh, he hopped on the slate right after President Trump, and he was on there for like literally 30, like maybe 90 seconds, 69 seconds. Let's say 69 seconds. Um, nice. And and he was saying that even in that Gettysburg case, the actual allegations of fraud never made it into that particular case, so that's why they threw it out. And I'm starting to think, you're still waiting on a couple of cases left. You still have Sidney Powell's cases in both Georgia and Michigan. It seems like Georgia's going to be the real battleground right now for this because it's now intra party fighting, and you have two Republican incumbent senators running in a special election, or not special election. I'm sorry, a Senate runoff on January 5th. So it's like all eyes are on Georgia, and I'm just thinking like, man, this is
Right.
just such a
Oh,
disaster for them.
real quick, I want to plug. I wrote something for the Daily Caller, so if you want to
What?
check that out about the Georgia runoff,
Really?
you can check that out. Yeah.
We'll let's
Um,
go find it right now, and I'll drop a link in the chat. Daily Caller.
yeah. So I mean,
I called it. I
I
called it. I
actually
called it. I
believe,
called it
you
dollar
know,
collar. All right. So
now, now
tell us what you wrote.
so honestly, I mean, they wanted a Democratic position. I gave them a Democratic position. I think it's going to be razor thin. It's going to be super close. But I truly believe that all this Democratic, I mean, all this Republican infighting is only helping the Democrats.
Mm-hmm.
All this going after Raffensperger and now Kemp, you know what I mean? Like that does nothing but help Democrats, help Ossoff. Also, one of the things we've seen is Purdue is running this campaign that's saying, look, I have nothing to offer you, but be afraid of the other guy. And
Mm-hmm.
that's exactly what Hillary Clinton did in 2016. And that is a losing message. You have to offer people something other
Well,
than be
this is
afraid of that other person.
this is
And
what
so,
they're offering, and you're probably right on most of it. But what they're offering is that they're saying it's going to be the end of the country if the Democrats take control of the Senate. But that is a lot of big contingencies rely on that. First of all, if
but
Democrats,
that's exactly what Hillary Clinton did.
yeah, no,
You
I
know what
know,
I mean?
yeah, no, you're right, you're right. Um, they're using it's the fear mongering that America is going to turn into a socialist nation. Despite everyone that Biden has picked as to be part of his cabinet, you have You had just today his economic team. You had Janet Yellen being nominated for Treasury Secretary. You have Neera Tanden being nominated for OMB, Office of Management Budget Director. Progressives fucking hate Neera Tanden with a fiery passion, probably more than any conservative can say that they hate her. And the reason for that is Neera Tanden, who was a Senate staffer when Hillary Clinton was a senator from New York from 2000 to 2008 before she ran for president and her failed run, that she spent pretty much all of her time as president of the Center for American Progress, the liberal think tank, basically shitting on progressives. And if you recall, I mean, Jason, you're tight with Tulsi Gabbard, and Neera Tanden completely threw her under the bus in 2016 when Gabbard was basically vice chair of the DNC and trying to basically raise the red flag that something's amiss here in our superdelegate system, and everyone is sort of just jumping behind Hillary Clinton and not letting the people really have a say in all of it. And she sort of like fell on her sword, resigned from the DNC, and then after that, pretty much the entire DNC crumbled. You had the what's it called, the DNC hack that came out during the Democratic National Convention in 2016. I mean, Democrats have it's actually fascinating how much more vicious the fighting is within the parties than it is towards each directed across the aisle. It's wild.
Yeah, no, I think that some of that has subsided. I think that there are a lot of people who are moderately progressive, if that makes any sense,
Hmm.
that are like, all right, you're Tandon, you're a clown, but you'll do the job. You know what I mean? So,
I
and a
don't know if she'll
lot
get
of,
confirmed though. I don't think she'll get
you have
confirmed.
to
It's
look.
a Senate confirmed position.
I think she will, and honestly, I think that in the aggregate, when you look at the choices that Joe Biden has made, and the choices that he is looking to make, like for DOD, taking Flournoy, I think is a good choice. Um, or Jay Johnson, who I think is also a decent choice. I would go with Flournoy because of the fact that she has been in the Pentagon, and if there's one thing that our federal government needs, it's it needs a lot more morale. It needs a boost in morale. And I think morale goes high when people see you in the hallways and then you get promoted
Hmm.
versus bringing in an outsider. So I think that that's a good thing. As far as the thing with Tulsi, and let me be clear, Tulsi's my friend. I love her to death as a person, but I don't agree with her on a lot of stuff. Like
Sure.
we're not in agreement on everything.
I mean,
Um,
who among us agrees with our friends 100% of the time? Essentially 100% of the time.
Right. No, absolutely. It's kind of sad that people look for that 100% agreement in order to have people in their lives or in their circle or whatever. And I'll say this Tandon went after Tulsi. She went after Bernie forever. And it was like, when are you going to own up to the fact that Hillary Clinton, who is I think without question the most qualified person to have been president or to run for president, had the best and longest resume, and failed. When are you going to blame the campaign for running a terrible campaign? For exactly why I'm saying that Purdue and Leffler are going to lose or could possibly lose. I think they have a better chance. But the reason that it's even a contest in a state like Georgia is because they don't have a message other than the bad guy, the other guy is bad and he's going to ruin everything.
Yeah, they're
And
a
that's not
socialist. Yeah.
that America will embrace. People want to hear, what are you going to do? And now also with Purdue hiding from a debate with Ossoff, he looks like a coward. People in Georgia don't like that. They
Mm.
don't like for you to run. They like Donald Trump because they see Donald Trump as a fighter. They see Donald Trump as somebody who steps up and says what he has to say and doesn't run from the press and doesn't run from anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Debatable whether that's true, but that's the way he's perceived. When you have Purdue, who's like, yo, I might not do well in a debate, so I'm not going to debate for the next, 35 days, when there's space for debate.
Mm-hmm.
I think that actually what is going to, what is going to hurt their campaigns. And, not to mention the implied anti-Semitism in
The Blinken, huh?
No, I was going to say with Purdue in one of his ads lengthened Ossoff's nose.
Huh? I did not see that. Is Ossoff Jewish? I
They
didn't.
said it was, yeah, Ossoff's Jewish.
What?
Lengthened.
Let's go find that. We can find that John Ossoff ad. Why can't I find it? David Perdue Ossoff ad.
Yeah. So. Look.
Oh, that was from the summer.
Purdue campaign deletes ad that enlarges Jewish opponent's nose.
Oh shit!
Consistent with accident. Who does that by accident? You know what I'm saying?
Wow!
Like, I don't get that.
Wow!
You know what I mean?
I had no idea. But...
So there's I'm not calling him an anti-Semite.
No, that's just
all I'm saying is that looks weird to me.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, you could see for the BBs who are watching right now, you could see the side by side right here of John Ossoff on the left with obviously his actual appearance versus on the right with his basically his nose looking. But I mean that's pretty wild.
That was pretty problematic.
Yeah, definitely. Want to read this comment real quick from. Oh, what's up?
No, I mean you can't just say, "Oh, I'm pro-Israel, so I'm not an anti-Semite." That doesn't work. You know what I mean? Like again, the conflation of Israel with Judaism is problematic on a lot of different ways. But it's not just something that works on the left where you can say you're anti-Israel, so you're anti-Jewish. You can be pro-Israel and still be anti-Jewish. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think we talked about it like a couple of weeks ago when we were discussing how the whole concept of wanting to say proselytize. If you are, say, an evangelical and you want every person to be Christian, that is, say, for example, if you are pro-Israel, but you want all Jews to be Christian, is that inherently anti-Semitic? Because obviously the idea is if you proselytize and convert all Jews to Christianity, there will no longer be Jews, and therefore that is anti-Semitic. But I want to read this comment real quick from Dan from last night. He says, yeah, on a more serious note, the actual performance of the progressive wing of the party in 2018 and 2020 was really, really poor in terms of actually getting bills passed or even out of committee in the first place. Even now that they've grown their influence in the party, they're still tiny in comparison to moderate Dems. But AOC is stealing enough fundraising to piss them off. The fight has already started. Yeah, I mean the thing is, you often find that most of the loudest voices, the tiniest fraction or the minority of say a particular party tends to have the loudest megaphone or has the loudest voice, and that's obviously seems to be the case of AOC and the squad. And Jason, I just gotta say, all of these attempts from Republicans in Congress to try to basically try to find a group or come up with like a group of Congress members to combat the squad is just so tired and cringe. Like, just stop. Just don't think like you're giving them
No,
more oxygen by trying to be like their actual opponents. It's so stupid.
yeah. Like all the tweets that say like our squad is better than yours, and it's a bunch of like blonde Republican women. Like, stop with that. You know what I mean? Like, you look
Yeah.
dumb. Like, straight up. Just do your own thing. You don't need to be, or we're the anti squad. It's like, oh my
It's really dumb. Like, you should not define
God.
yourself based on what other people are doing.
Yeah, like just do you. Come up with your own thing.
This is why we
You
need
know what I
term.
mean?
This is actually probably the strongest argument for why we need term limits. Yeah, like one of them is called the Freedom Force. It's just so. It's just so bad. Anyways, oh, another big item that happened over the weekend. Jason, did you catch the Tyson Roy Jones Jr. fight, and by extension the Jake Paul Nate Robinson fight?
So let me just say about Jake Paul and Nate Robinson, the most enjoyable thing has been how the NBA players have been roasting uh, Nate Robinson. You know what I mean? Like Steph Curry, like they've all been just roasting him. You know what I mean? But here's the thing. So I read that Nate Robinson didn't spar at all because of COVID. He didn't have any sparring partners. All he did was hit the pads.
Oh
And
my
let me
god.
just as some if you want to learn how to beat up mitts, hit mitts. If you want to learn how to beat up a bag, hit the heavy bag. If you want to learn how to beat up a person, you have to fight a person.
Yeah, it's
You
completely
cannot.
different. Like you already know it's not. It's just not the same as the real deal. When you're hitting the bag, you're hitting the pads. It's different.
And I'll
You're not dealing with emotionless. I mean, like you might. I mean, with the pads, it might be different, but you're actually having to try to anticipate what their moves are going to be. You can't do it unless you're
yeah,
sparring with people. It's
right. And
wild.
let me tell you, um, I was watching video before the fight of excuse me, of Jake Paul knocking out sparring partners, like literally knocking them out. Like Jake Paul, other than his YouTube antics, has literally for the last 2 years just been fighting. That's like what he's been doing. You
Isn't
know
that
what I mean?
hilarious? I
He has,
mean, completely reinvent yourself as as like a boxer who does, uh, who actually like is getting wins, and then starts talking shit about uh, getting Conor McGregor in the ring.
I mean, I think you beat Conor McGregor. Just knock
Yeah,
Conor McGregor out.
yeah.
You know, like,
So, oh, this is such a great meme. Did you see any of the memes that were going around?
oh man, yeah, I saw all of them, man.
I love this. I love this one of what I believe what they are, the Ghanaian pallbearers who are carrying Nate Robinson's body out of the ring. Just classic shit. I love it. Let's see.
Nate Robinson was not ready to get hit.
No,
That's what
he was
his,
not.
his face. He
He
got punched. He was like, "Oh, I
he
got to take 6 rounds of that." Like,
he was not ready for that smoke. He was not ready for that smoke at all. Um, So as we continue on, I'm trying to see what other main stories have happened in the last couple of days because I did see, um, oh man. Well, I guess we could use this time for people to ask us questions. If you guys got them, hit them up, hit us up with them while I find another item, because obviously there's a lot happening in the world today. I do find actually, I've been having a lot of technical issues on my end with my new MacBook, and I'm gonna have to trade this shit in because I got it. I had the worst timing with this. I don't know if you're familiar, if you have any familiarity with tech specs, Jason, but I bought this MacBook Pro in September, and I maxed out on the processor. I maxed out on memory, kind of saved it on storage. But the biggest problem was that I bought it like literally a week before they announced this sort of new revamped processor called the M1 chip. So they're gonna basically Apple moved from Intel over to their own silicon chip, and like the difference in speed of their computers is just like night and day. And I'm dealing with this shit over here where it's just like everything is running immensely slow. It's like I got my last MacBook that I got was in 2014. It is running exactly at the same speed as that MacBook from 2014, the one I have now. So I gotta trade this shit in. It's really just driving me nuts. Um, Nate Beebe is asking me if I burned that damn Patriot sweater. I actually got one better for you.
Pats pulled out a big win. Oh, there we
I
go.
still got it. There we go. And hold up. You'll throw in the hat too. Let's go.
Oh, got the Pats hat.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Try to keep it nice and clean. Um, all right, so we got another. Oh, what's this story about shutting down restaurants? Um, Darcy's asking where the hell is Ernie? Ernie is currently upstairs hanging out. He might join on the stream maybe tonight. We'll see. I still got to figure out what I got to write for Roca today.
Yeah, so I actually, interestingly enough, I wrote something I've been really interested in, but like the roots, or not even the roots. I think it might even be a series. I don't know, but wrote a little bit about black, excuse me, black anti-Semitism and Jewish anti-blackness.
Yeah, we did a whole
So I wrote a little
episode.
bit about that.
We did a whole episode of hashing it out on that. What was that, over the summer, or just early in the fall?
Yeah,
That was a
yeah.
good episode. We
So
went like for almost a full hour on that. And I hashing it out. I very rarely do a full hour. Um, but
yeah, I mean, it's a deep topic, man. Like
yeah,
it's a deep topic, So I tried to touch it again. Um, Pause. And um, but yeah, so I revisited it. Did a little, a little more reading on the subject,
hmm. What did you
and
find? What's some of like your before? I mean, obviously, I don't want you to give the farm away, but tell us there's anything major that you discovered from it, like new developments, new takeaways.
yeah, I mean, basically, I think a lot of it is kind of the same thing that I said on hashing it out, in the sense that I think African Americans feel um, are frustrated with this attempt to make them the face of anti-Semitism,
Hmm.
when it's far right nuts that are out there like shooting up, synagogues, and beating people up on the street, doing racist graffiti. That's generally not black people. You know what I mean? Like, for the most part, that's not black people.
Hmm.
I think there are, certain things, disinformation that goes around. And I think that, what the right has done really good, or really well, is to really brand things like Farrakhan as some sort of really big time major black leader. When Farrakhan has, I was just looking at it, like he has 350,000 Twitter followers.
Hmm.
Now, that's about 10% of the amount of Twitter followers that, uh, what's the guy that talks really fast with the squeaky voice, the right wing guy? Daily Wire.
Oh, Ben Shapiro.
Thank you. Ben Shapiro, I always forget his name. Ben Shapiro has like 3 million Twitter followers. So, by scale, is he really that influential? Is he really that big a leader? I think the thing that keeps him in the news is the idea, in some ways, is the idea that, he is this big black leader and he's encouraging all these black people to be anti Semites.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it becomes this kind of cycle where, because people are frustrated with the face of anti-Semitism being black, that they in many ways will defend Farrakhan.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So
and also,
go ahead.
And also, I think, with that, many African Americans know somebody that, particularly if you have like working class friends and family, which is many African Americans, you know somebody that the Nation of Islam has cleaned up. You know what I mean? Somebody who was on drugs, in prison, something like that. When the rest of society shunned those people, we're just getting to a point where we're talking about prison reentry. We're talking about treatment for people who can't afford Betty Ford and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Question
for you.
Yeah.
So a question for you from Dan. He says, Dr. Nichols, don't you think that reach is extended through the celebrities who subscribe to his beliefs? So say, for example, Ice Cube, earlier this summer, he was posting a bunch of things that were anti-Semitic. You had Nick Cannon, you had Deshaun Jackson. All of them in some way, shape, or form referenced Louis Farrakhan. Ice Cube, though, and interestingly enough, he had a bit of a turn because he actually had conversations with the Zionist Organization of America president Mark Klein, and it seems like, and I think you and I have talked about it on Hashing It Out, that it's not so much that people have been informed on these ideas and they still hold them, is that a lot of them are actually ignorant, or they find bits and pieces of information that seem to inform their worldview a little bit more, and they think that that is the truth when it's not. Say, for example, like Deshaun Jackson using a quote from Hitler that was actually misattributed to him. And I mean, like things about, say, for example, the Women's March associating themselves with Louis Farrakhan. Like that in and of itself, I think is probably more dangerous. It's just like, when you talk about how we know who Trump is, and people seem to get a sense that, they feel like they know everything about him, and that he's not going to change. But what is different, what does seem to change a lot, are the people that associate themselves with him. So like they use the word enabler. So the thing is, people tend to change their opinions on Trump quite a bit. So you have like Anthony Scaramucci, for example, worked at the White House, now is like a huge anti-Trump figure in the media. And then you've had the same happen with a bunch of other people who worked with him. But then you've also had people like, were maybe anti-Trump before, but then came around to liking him. And people start calling them enablers. And then you apply that to people like, say, Louis Farrakhan. You have Ice Cube. You have the Women's March. Is that more problematic than, say, just having 300,000 followers on Twitter?
So I do think, again, it's a little offensive, in my opinion, that people think black people are so susceptible to celebrity influence. You saw how quickly people rejected Ice Cube, and I think it was unfair.
Like, what do you mean?
The way they rejected him over the working with the Trump administration.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I was trying to figure out exactly what it was, in what context they were rejecting him.
A really roundabout work with the Trump administration. He was basically just willing to sit down for a conversation outside the White House, not with the president, and didn't take any photos. But yet, like, people just went after him because Katrina Pearson leaked that he had talked to them.
Yeah.
Um, and my big thing with Ice Cube in that situation is that his version of black capitalism is wrong. It's not going to do anything.
So
Your
what?
500.
Let's discuss that. Quick tangent.
Mhm,
In his view, he talks about the contract with Black America.
mhm.
What is his vision of black capitalism, and then what is your vision of it?
Well, I don't necessarily think that if you want to bring prosperity to any people, we do what works. And what created the American middle class wasn't capitalism. It was social democracy. And I would say that with major government intervention is what created the American middle class, and black people were largely left out of that.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to create prosperity within black communities, you're going to need major government intervention. Call it whatever you want. Call it reparations, call it, with contract with whomever, but that's what it takes. That's what created the American middle class through the GI Bill, which black people were largely left out of, which invested in not only education, but small business loans.
Mm-hmm.
The creation of the suburbs that black people were left out of, and the fact that whites, including a lot of people are like, well, my grandfather came from Italy and he had nothing and he couldn't speak English,
Mm-hmm.
but yet he was not kept out of those suburban, those FHA-backed loans. You know whose grandfather was kept out of that?
Yours.
You know what I mean? So again, the government, not just mine, but black people from 1934 to 1964, when the FHA was backing their loans, at the same time, black people were, there's the case, if anybody read the case for reparations by Ta-Nehisi Coates, they would go into contracts. So basically, you're selling me a house, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so instead of going through a bank, we're going direct through the seller. So you own the house. The house is $30,000, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to own the house. You keep the deed, but I'm going to own the house after I pay it off, after I pay off all $30,000. Let's say the mortgage is $1,000 a month. So in 30 months, I'm going to own this house. But I, because I'm, African American in 1950,
Mm-hmm.
I'm the last hired and the first fired. Or maybe I get ill or something like that, and I have to miss a payment. Guess what happens? You can evict me immediately because essentially I'm a renter. It's like a rent to own situation.
Right.
So you kept the deed. I don't have the deed. And the thing I didn't get in is, if I paid for 18 months, I didn't get $18,000 worth of equity in the house. Whereas for whites, the government backed them. You know what I mean? It was the government's small loans. And black people, even if you could afford to live in those neighborhoods, because of restrictive covenants and redlining, you couldn't live in those neighborhoods. You couldn't get a business in your own neighborhood because of redlining. It's government intervention that has created the American middle class. And if you want to lift people up, you've got to do something bold, backed by the government. It's not going to be, well, we're going to, every president, and I'll direct you guys, if you get a chance, read Mehrsa Badaradan's The Color of Money. Great book. There's also a free book from my friend, Dr. Jared Ball. It's called The Myth of Black Buying Power. If you, and this will explain this all really well, if you, I'll just say really quickly, if you are somebody who is looking to build wealth, and if you were looking, the way we build wealth is usually through home ownership, but black people were being kept out of home ownership. One of the reasons that people in those communities, many of the people who own those houses in the black communities, that, in that scenario that I set up, a lot of them were Greek, Italian, or Jewish. So that starts some of that problems with the relationship between Jews and black people too,
Hmm.
is that landlord situation.
Right.
Um,
And we talked about that
so
like, pretty
yeah,
extensively too.
while I think it's overstated by African Americans, that situation, because it wasn't just Jews, but it's way overstated. But it did exist, and we can't gaslight, black people who had those circumstances when it's like, I went to the Jewish guy's store, he treated me like crap. I own a house. The house that I live in is owned by somebody who doesn't live in my community. Um, I think it's overstated by both sides, understated by one side, overstated by the other. But I think, if we want to, fix the situation for African Americans, there has to be serious government intervention, and there's so much pushback to that. It's like if we were playing basketball and I wasn't given shoes, and you are, sitting there dunking on me, would never happen. But you are sitting there dunking on me, just destroying me. And then I finally get some shoes while the score is 100-2. Like, you can't then say it's equal. I'm behind 98 points.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I've been getting constantly dunked on because I had no shoes. So again, there need to be serious interventions. That's what built the white American middle class, or the American middle class writ large. And then you sprinkle on the capitalism on top of it. Like the Italians had the Bank of Italy,
Hmm.
which wasn't a bank in Italy, it was a bank in the United States for Italian Americans. And then that became Bank of America.
Wow, I didn't know that.
But that wasn't, yeah, it's an interesting story. But that isn't what helped Italian Americans. It was them being accepted as white that brought them that kind of prosperity first. It's the conditional acceptance of other groups, even immigrant groups like Asian Americans, that has given them much more ability to, to have prosperity in their communities. And African Americans have been largely left out of that. And there needs to be government intervention in order to make that happen. So everything Ice Cube is saying, not going to do anything.
Yeah. Well, just a reply from Dan, who says this. He says, and that's kind of a cop out in my eyes. I'm not implying anything about the black community's susceptibility to celebrity influence. My point is that during that situation, celebrities with a much larger reach than Farrakhan himself, as well as black activists who certainly have more reach than a celebrity would share and support those same ideas publicly immediately following one person's public support of Farrakhan. Like, I could see how people would be susceptible to, say, a black activist's influence more than, say, a black celebrity. So, say, for example, anyone within the Women's March, when it comes to changing thoughts and minds, I feel like they would have more gravitas and credibility to speak on something with knowledge and have people sort of soften their views on, say, someone who is considered by many people a rabid anti-Semite. So I would say, I mean, like, I agree on the premise that celebrity opinions don't really matter, but activists' opinions do, especially in the public forum of ideas in the public square. And so that, I think, it's way more problematic for the Women's March to have embraced Louis Farrakhan than, say, Ice Cube or Deshaun Jackson or Nick Cannon. I mean, like, the thing is, if you listen to hip hop music over the last like 30 years, I mean, they, in some way, shape, or form, they a lot of some of these socially conscious rappers have been talking about uh, extreme ideas. Like, uh, for example, like, my favorite rapper of all time, besides Jason, of course, is Nas, and I've had to sort of square away with the idea that Nas, despite his his wealth and his standing and his success in life, he probably has a lot more communist tendencies, like talking about like Che Guevara, and I'm like, I'm not so sure about that. And then you have, I mean, it's kind of interesting. Like Busta Rhymes, another one. He just came out. He just dropped Extinction Level Event too, and he's got a track with Louis Farrakhan. I'm like, this feels weird listening to, and I and I don't particularly like it, but like I still mess with Busta Rhymes just because like he's a phenomenally talented rapper. So like
You know,
there is a way to
I think
separate. I was just gonna say there's a way to separate the art from the artist, and I think a lot of people are able to do that.
yeah, I think so. Shout out to Dan. And definitely take his point. What I would say though is at the same time, while you guys, I get it. I've never heard, when I think about the women's march people, Linda Sarsour, whose name I only know because I'm in right wing media, like literally, that's where you hear her name. Tamika Mallory, who I know a little bit because of she gets a little bit of play in black media, which unfortunately not even black people support enough. But she gets a little bit of play. But I think if you ask your average person who Linda Sarsour is, or show them a picture and said, "Who is this average black person on the street?" Let's go to Southeast DC,
Hmm.
walk by and be like, "Who is this and what does she support?" And show them Linda Sarsour. They'd be like, I don't know.
I don't even know
Who,
if you
who the
get one.
hell is that?
Yeah, I doubt you'd even get one person on the street that would know. Not even just in
Yeah.
Southeast DC. I would say just like in any metropolitan area, regard it's just yeah. I agree.
I just don't know. And what people do know about her, at least in black communities, like with Tamika Mallory, is that Tamika Mallory is there and she stayed when when Breonna Taylor got shot. And she stayed out there and she stayed involved. And that's where the conundrum comes through is, you know, I don't know, and forgive me if I've got this twisted, but I know that I believe Mallory and Sosor and all them, they maybe met with Farrakhan or something, but I
Oh,
don't
they
think it was
definitely did.
about, yeah, but I don't think it was about Judaism. I'll tell you right now, I'm gonna be honest with you. Um, Farrakhan, the dangerous thing that he put out and why people think he's an anti-Semite, from my understanding, is that there was a book written that doesn't really have an author. I'm forgetting the title, but there was a book written, published by the Nation of Islam, that says that Jews were the main force behind the slave trade.
Oh yeah, yeah, I remember that. We talked about that. I don't.
Right.
There is
And
a.
and
I think there is an author behind that. I just don't remember the name. But anyways, continue on with your point.
yeah, I mean, um, as someone who is a historian, on some level, and someone who studies culture, uh, that's largely false. You know what I mean? It's a misunderstanding of the data and all of that. Um, it's largely false.
Hmm.
I think another thing that gets African Americans frustrated, I think, is because there are a lot of there is anti-blackness in Jewish communities, and it's like, you know, it's like you're telling me to sweep my porch, and your porch is dirty. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? Like, if we're gonna do this together, then you would have more credibility. But it's like you're telling me sweep my porch, reject everybody who steps on my porch, but you don't clean your porch. I think that's what some black people feel. There's not really an address of anti-blackness. There was that young man who's blind in one eye because he got beaten up in Brooklyn by, as he was rolling through a Hasidic Jewish neighborhood for no reason, black gay guy. And it's, so it's like frustrating. And yet it also feels like that right-wing community, right-wing white people that go and shoot up,
The synagogue in Pittsburgh.
and do all those kinds of terrible things, it's like the focus isn't there. The focus is on Farrakhan. And I'll tell you this: the Nation of Islam, as far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, but they've never committed any acts of violence against, any hateful acts of violence. Not like
I don't know, man. I don't know if the thing is, where
that I'm aware of.
Sure, I get what you're saying. I'm just saying in terms
I'm not
of
saying it doesn't.
yeah, it doesn't.
Impossible.
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. In terms, like the thing is, people look at how radicalism is inspired, and
Sure.
you can draw the line, directly from one person to say the influencer, and look, maybe some of them have been directly tied to the Nation of Islam, as we were talking about before. This Nation of Islam book, which actually you're correct, there is no actual author. It's the author is the Historical Research Department of the NOI, Nation of Islam, and obviously the title of the book is The Secret Relationship Between Blacks and Jews. I was just gonna say though that while you cannot actually tie directly, well, say for example, if your premise is right, I can't say for sure. We know that is to be true given how long.
And let me be clear. I'm not saying that for sure either.
Yeah.
I just
to your knowledge, right off the top of your head, I get what you're saying.
I've never heard of that. I'm not saying that it's never happened, but to my knowledge, the Nation of Islam itself, I can tell you several acts of violence that have been perpetrated against black people. And I think the other thing by the Nation of Islam.
Yeah, go ahead.
By the Nation of Islam. But the one thing that frustrates me I think.
I cut you off. You said violent acts against black people by the Nation of Islam.
Yeah. I think also, I think some black people get frustrated because, and there was a TED Talk I was watching about this. Ice Cube says something, some rapper says something that is anti-Semitic, we will move to ban them from the radio like they did with Public Enemy in the background, or in back in the day. But if you turned on the radio between 1995 and 2010, you heard nothing but messages of black people killing other black people. And that was free speech. You know what I mean? You could hear, literally, you could listen to the radio for 4 hours and hear 400 black people die.
Yeah.
But, and it's not just, this is going beyond the Judaism thing.
Yeah. I get what you're saying.
But, Kanye West in one of his songs said, he leaves your ass for a white girl in Gold Digger.
Right.
And they bleep that out in some cities.
Really?
Yeah. White girl was a slur.
Wow.
You know what I mean? But you could hear, again, you could hear black people talk about killing black people. You could hear rappers, who knows what race they are, talk about killing black people all day long. Call black women all kinds of names. But you say white girl and it gets cut? And I think a lot of people get frustrated because, all you heard was killing N-words, killing N-words, killing N-words. And there was none of this there was little of this outrage. And I'm not one for censorship, so right. I'm cool with that. But if you're not going to censor that, then you can't censor other messages.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think that also is another place where the frustration brews. But I think a lot of it is the disinformation that gets spread around about Jews, about Judaism. You know, and one of the things is that's a difficult thing to navigate is that Jews are the chosen people by God. That's a powerful place to be.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of Black people, because particularly Black people in the Western Hemisphere, because so much of our history has been stolen from us. You know, it's like being an adopted child. What does an adopted child do? An adopted child imagines his or her history, imagines what their parents are like, makes them this kind of grandiose thing. And so what happened is now you have people saying, well, we're the real Jews. Those people aren't real Jews, they're imposters. Because we're the chosen people of God. And I know that because I don't know my real history, because that's been stolen from me. And again, I have a different view on the whole chosen people of God thing. You know what I mean? I think, you know, people get chosen at different times for different things. But, you know, the thing is, a lot of Black people started saying, well, we're the real Jews. And I'm like, no, that guy's a real Jew too.
Yeah.
Like, even if you're Jewish, fine, you can be Jewish, but that guy's real Jewish too.
And
like,
I think it's also interesting the whole discussion around the chosen people, because even among Jews, there's different interpretations of what, you know, being chosen by God means. Is if you're the chosen people of God. I've heard rabbis say that God chose Jews to basically the Israelites chose the Israelites to become sort of the vehicles for spreading his message via the Ten Commandments and the Ark of the Covenant and basically the Dead Sea Scrolls and well, not Dead Sea Scrolls. That's sort of like tangential, but like the actual Torah and the original 6 books of Moses, or is it 5? It's 5 books. It's 5 or 6. Sorry, I'm not Jewish, so like it's I'm only married to one.
I'll tell you what I think chosen is. Chosen is a responsibility. I don't want to be chosen personally.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And that's also a way that it's interpreted as well.
Yeah, I don't think of chosen as, you know, like God likes me better. I think when I think of chosen, it means because God loves all his children. Right. I don't think that chosen means you're better. I think chosen means you have a responsibility to these other people. You know what I mean? That's a lot of responsibility. Yeah. I'll give them that.
Yeah,
you can have that.
Yeah, no, and I mean, like, and you probably would have seen it over the course of history, just how many times Jews have been tried, or people have tried to annihilate the Jews, and so
absolutely. And let me be clear. I just want to be clear. Like, as somebody, and I'm not gonna get emotional because I'm gonna try my best, but you know, some of my family, you know, and I told you this in hashing it out. My family, my dad grew up in Germany, post World War II, non-military. You know, my family left for Germany because they couldn't get opportunities here in the United States. Now think about that. You know what I mean? For people who don't understand racism, think about the fact that a Black family said, it's so bad here, we're going to go to post-World War II, immediately post-World War II Germany, because there's more opportunity there.
Oh my God.
You know? But my family, you know, the few Jews that were left, you know, my family befriended those people. When I was growing up, my dad got married Um, you know, there were 5 groomsmen. So me, his 2 brothers, and his 2 best friends, who were both 2 Jewish guys.
Mm-hmm.
My family, like I grew up in Jewish people's homes, like, and I knew, a lot of Holocaust survivors. Not a lot. I knew some Holocaust survivors. People with numbers still on their, tattooed on them.
Yeah.
I, can't tell you how much I deplore anti-Semitism. And that's one of the reasons why I want to know, I want to figure out what the source of anti-Semitism in Black communities is and find a way to reconcile some of these issues, and maybe, I'm one dude, so I don't know if
Yeah,
there's anything
but
I can do.
even one person can change all of this. And you could be that
So
one person.
it's
You are the
so,
chosen man by God with the responsibility of changing all of this.
and I think it's, there's a thing too. I also, as a kid, growing up in an area that was, um, I'd say Jewish people were overrepresented. I won't say they weren't the majority, but they were
Hmm.
overrepresented. My school was around 10-15% Jewish. And Jews are about 2% of, the American population. So overrepresented. And some of the communities nearby were very heavily Jewish.
Hmm.
And, you know, I also experienced a whole lot of anti-Black racism at the hands of some of the people in those communities. So it was, and it was funny. I was talking to a friend of mine when I was writing it, who went to my high school, and the way he described it was perfect. I was like, "So, what was your experience?" And he was like, "Man, look, Jewish people are cousins." And I was like, "That's a perfect way of describing it.
Hmm.
Totally, Black people and Jewish people are cousins." You know what I mean? In the sense that there's so many similarities when I look at, you know, Jewish people, and particularly thinking of Jewish men and and African American men. I think there's so many similarities, even culturally,
Hmm.
between those two groups. And if we can find a way, um, but there are also major differences.
Yeah, no,
But if we
I
can
mean,
find,
yeah, totally.
to get beyond that, and the thing is, I think African Americans kind of feel frustrated also because they feel like we should have that natural kinship.
Yeah.
But Jews were regionally were accepted more into whiteness. You know what I mean? So it's like I got left behind.
Hmm.
I'm not saying this is right or wrong. I'm just saying this is how I think some people feel,
Yeah.
is that Jews were accepted into whiteness, even when we had all of these similarities, when we were riding together in the civil rights movement, and and doing all these things together. It's like you went off with them, and it's like if you were my homie, you know what I mean, and I had a rival crew, but then you start running with that rival crew. I'm gonna not like that rival crew, but I'm not gonna like you, especially because we were tight, and
Hmm.
I felt like you abandoned me for the advantages that you would get with that other crew. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I don't know. Maybe this will be a book project. Maybe I'll
Yeah,
just
no, I
interview a
mean,
bunch of
yeah,
people.
it's a good thing to explore. I mean, I didn't expect that we get too much into this topic, but I mean, we talked about it for like the last half hour, so I think it's been fascinating.
Well, I'm wondering what the Habibis have been saying.
Uh,
Anybody?
let's
Just
see.
Dan?
Let's see. We got Super Squirrel saying, "Yeah, Jews def did not just go ride with white people." Uh, Ben is responding to your particular point about your family having to leave the United States for Germany, saying that's so terrible. Um, and Dan saying, I completely understand the idea that black anti Semitism is used often enough way to silence people's legitimate criticisms, but extremist behavior in any community hurts that community and should be addressed regardless of other communities' actions before it leads to things like violent extremist behavior. Other people's inactions doesn't justify inaction. So,
I'm with that. I can agree with that. No,
yeah.
and a lot of what I'm saying is not necessarily how I feel.
Right. No,
I'm
I
trying
mean,
to
you're a
explain.
professor, so sometimes a
Yeah,
lot
I'm
of it.
not saying how I feel per
Yeah.
se. I'm saying this is how others are viewing it. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And
Uh,
people I've talked to, even sometimes maybe my first impulse, but it's not necessarily when I think it through that that's how I'm feeling. And I agree, extremism is bad anywhere you slice it.
mm-hmm.
Um, you know, so I think there definitely needs to be a discussion about that. Um,
Beatrix was
I
saying,
think.
oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I
Mm-hmm.
was just going to read a couple more comments. Beatrix BB says, this is so educational. Thank you both. Super Squirrel says, all of my Jewish grandparents were denied housing in suburbia, even at the time when those towns were desegregated, despite there still being prejudice. But then goes on to say, but yeah, thank you both. I agree with 90% of the stuff here. Fuck anti-Semitism and racism. That I think we can all agree on.
I can hang my hat on that.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Any final points before we go? Because we're at like an hour and 21 minutes. We're definitely running over time.
Yeah, definitely. Read my piece from Roca.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Is it up? Is it up right now?
I don't think so. I got to hit up Max Frost, but
Okay.
read my piece when it goes up. Retweet it. Add any comments, any like disagreements, because this is supposed to be a dialogue. I do want to dialogue about this. I do want to learn something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so it's not. I think one of the things we do too often with social media and other things is we're trying to dunk on each other instead of trying to learn from one another.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like people don't write like, hey, disagree here because XYZ respectfully. Yeah. It's like people are always like, this guy's an idiot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
All the time.
Instead of just having a conversation. And I want to further the conversation because if there's anything Black people and Jewish people, and first of all, let me not erase the fact that there are Black Jews,
right?
But that Black African Americans and particularly Ashkenazi Jews and some Sephardic Jews can come together on, we need to actually have the conversation, actually figure out what the issue is, so that we can come together like Dr. King and Stanley Levison and like so many and Cheney and Goodman and Schwerner and the history of Black and Jewish cooperation where Black people and Jewish people gave their lives for one another.
Mm-hmm.
If we got to get to that, we have to actually have the conversation. So I'm totally open to criticism. As long as it's not like this guy's an idiot. You know what I mean?
Well, Jason, you
like,
can always rely on me for that.
No doubt. No doubt.
A couple more comments before we go. Beatrix BB says, I was raised in a prevalently Caucasian rural area, piss poor, but more opportunities than our community. She goes on to say, this helps me learn about policymakers and propaganda, how it works. And both Ben and Beatrix BB ask, Dr. Nichols, do you have a podcast?
I do have a podcast. I haven't been up on it recently, but I do have a podcast. It's called Tour with Dr. Nichols. It stands for the Other Underground Railroad. So definitely check out some old episodes, and if it gets a little bit of a following, then I will definitely start doing more episodes.
Well, yeah. Right now, this is the only regular thing that I think. Well, when was the last time you did tour? What was the last episode?
So a couple months ago, I did an African American and Jewish,
Oh, really? That's good. You should definitely promote that episode again when I promote this.
So. Yeah, with an old friend of mine who's close friend of mine Who, if you're in the Baltimore area and you're hungry, go to Hirsch's Pizza and Drinks, best pizza in the city, best, sit down environment, one of the best restaurants around. Well, I don't know if you could sit down there now,
Yeah.
but you can certainly go to food from there. And he is a man who, the restaurant has a ethos, or maybe pathos, pathos. Either way, has, they hire a lot of people who have been incarcerated. It's a very multiracial staff. He hires a lot of people who need those jobs.
Mm-hmm.
It's been tough right now, so definitely go to Hirsch's Pizza and Drinks out there, Baltimore, right near the harbor.
Go ahead.
Meal on me.
Just a couple
Well,
more.
not on me.
Couple more comments. Dan from last night says, "Can we do an in-depth review of how European and American imperialism ruined the Middle East?" I'd be certain open to talking about that.
I'm down.
We can maybe plan on doing that next week. Rob Wynn says, Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel is a personal hero of mine in regards to Jewish/Black relations.
He's
yeah. And Beatrix continues, I mean, our local community level has programs for all ethnic minorities, and it fails in the inner cities, does okay in the outskirts of rural district. I'm white, I was poor, but had better access. My friends' schools in the districts saw little money from policymakers. Well, we'll just continue on the conversation, and hopefully you can get back up on recording another episode of Tour. And I can eventually do Keeping It Halal again, although I feel like the Twitch stream has sort of replaced doing Keeping It Halal. So whatever. I mean, how many podcasts can I do in a week? Right now I'm at 3.
Yeah, I feel you.
It's too much.
I gotta like actually grade papers. And,
yeah, we actually got work to do. I actually got to go pitch my Roka news piece and write that. So, Habibis, thank you so much for joining us for The Balance. I'm Siraj Hashmi.
I'm Dr. Jason Nichols.
And we'll see you guys next week. Peace.
Awesome. Peace out.